Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for its regularly scheduled meeting of October 4th, 2012. I'm Joey Hargis, and I'll be presenting the cases for review in today's public hearing. Would ask everyone, if you would, please either silence or turn off your cell phones so as not to disrupt today's proceedings. The board would appreciate it. The procedure will be to introduce the case record on the wall here by means of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll present any site plans, photographs, and maps of today's properties, of the properties involved in today's cases. We'll also present any letters that we have in support or opposition to a case, as well as any correspondence we've received from other government agencies. At the conclusion of our presentation, the applicant will come first to the table, along with any persons in support of the case. If there's opposition present, the board will then hear from those parties opposed to the case after the applicant goes first. After the opposition has presented their testimony, the applicant will have a period for rebuttal. The board in their rules provides that applicants on cases without opposition have 10 minutes to present their testimony. When you come forward here, to your right will be a clock on the top of the podium there. That'll keep track of your time. In a case with opposition, both sides of a case have 15 minutes to present their testimony. So the applicant gets 15 minutes and will probably want to save some of their 15 minutes for rebuttal after the opposition goes. Once the applicant goes first, the opposition will have 15 minutes to present their testimony in total. That 15 minutes is an aggregate for everybody wishing to speak. So if there's multiple speakers, be sure and work out your time before you come up. All section numbers I refer to today come directly from the Metropolitan Code of Law, which is under Title 17 of the Metro Code of Law. Title 17 was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective January 1st, 1998, and applies to the entire jurisdiction of Metro government. I'll introduce and make a part of the record the zoning code, a copy of which is kept at my desk, and I'll dispense from reading individual sections unless the applicant or opposition requests that those sections be read. The code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, it's imperative anyone wishing to address this board to come forward. On your podium microphone stand, just like mine, there's a speak button on the table. If you'll hit that button, you'll notice the red ring comes on around the microphone. Give your testimony. Then when you get done, if you turn that microphone off, we'd appreciate it. It should be noted that it's found that anyone's presented false or misleading testimony to this board that may have affected the board's decision. Any approval may be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through all cases set for public hearing today, and after each case, the board will discuss and vote on that case. The board is vested with the power to act on the cases before today as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law. The code requires that 4 members of the 7-member panel be present to constitute a quorum. The code requires 4 affirmative votes to grant your application. Today I have only 4 members present, so you need all 4 votes in the affirmative to grant your case. If you fail to achieve 4 votes today, your case is automatically rescheduled for the next available hearing. That'll be the second meeting in November. New signs, new notices are sent out by the codes office. Nothing more is needed. No additional fees are subject to you, and we'll just essentially do a do-over and reset the case for the next available hearing. That meeting would be November the 15th, 2012. The appellant or any aggrieved property owner may request a rehearing within 60 days of today's public hearing. Further, the applicant or any aggrieved property member may appeal this board's decision to Chancery or Circuit Court within 60 days. After that 60 days has elapsed, the board's decision is final and no further action may be taken. If you're an applicant and your case is granted today, it is necessary for you to come and pick up the permit for which you've applied. This hearing is just one step in that permit process. And you have 2 years from today's hearing to pick up your permit for this board's approval to remain valid. If you wait 2.5 years and then decide to get your permit, you have to start over. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases were filed in order. Appellants were notified by certified mail as required by the code. All affected property owners have been notified, and the legal ad was published in the Tennessean. And before I begin with preliminary announcements, the board does allow elected officials to address the board prior to public hearings beginning. Any council folks or elected officials who wish to address the board before the hearings get started? Council lady? You don't have to. It's your choice.
I'll just wait.
Okay. Any other elected officials present? Okay. Okay, I do have a few preliminary announcements. Let me go over those. Members here and the folks in attending. The first two cases on our agenda are cases that were left over. The very first case was a case that we lost a quorum on before the hearing. We will take Ms. Sider's case on Riverwood Drive first today. At the top of page 2 is a case left over from last time. That was a deferred case. And then today's agenda begins from cases 95 onward. The board does have a consent agenda, and these are the cases dealing that were regularly scheduled for today. Those would be cases 95 through the end of page 3. A board member reviews the record in each case, and prior to the hearing, if in their opinion the applicant has met the criteria for the application for which they've requested, and they feel that testimony in a case would not alter the material facts, they recommend the case to the board, to the remainder of the board members for approval. And I'm going to call those cases now and enter those in. If you are here in opposition to a case number that I call, if you would please raise your hand. We'll remove that case from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. The first case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2012-95, the Metro Government 1747 Dr. D.B. Todd Boulevard. I know there were some folks present. Have your questions or been answered to your satisfaction?
Yes.
Okay. All parties agree. Are there any other parties opposed to case or have questions regarding case 95? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, this is a special exception request and variances to demolish the fire station at 1747 Dr. D.B. Todd. I apologize, that's Station 11, I believe. Station 11 has been in the neighborhood for many, many decades. That structure is going to be replaced with a new fire hall on that site. Mr. Whitson, the chair, reviewed the case and recommended that case for consent to the remaining board members. The next case recommended for the consent agenda, case 2012-96, Urban Housing Solutions, appellant Daniel and Amanda Burt, the owner of the property at 12 Garden Street, requesting variances in side and rear setbacks to allow the subdivision of the parcel into two properties. Are there any parties here opposed to case 96 at 12 Garden Street? Anyone in opposition to case 96 on Garden? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, this is a request to take a legally non-conforming use that is far in excess of the allowable units. The number of units on this property will decrease. A portion of the building will be removed to allow the subdivision of the property into two separate parcels. The planning department will handle the subdivision side of that, but this board must act to either grant a setback in those setbacks. And with that, Mr. Whitson recommends that case for the consent agenda. And finally, case 2012-98, Mr. Raouf Matin, 4,000 Granny White Pike, requesting variance in landscaping in CN District to construct and install a new parking lot to the rear of the existing building. Are there any parties here in opposition to case 98? No parties here in case 98. This is a request. This lot actually went through a recent zone change to commercial neighborhood. The parking lot that exists out there has existed for close to 2 decades. This actually, the rezoning and the permit in this makes this compliant. They will be asking for a landscaping variance along the adjoining property line with a privacy fence and 5 feet of landscaping on that side. With that, that case is recommended for consent by Mr. Chairman.
We've got a motion for consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
You're here for cases. Your cases have been approved. You are free to go. And thank you all for attending. And we'll call the first case today, case 2012-92. Ms. Elizabeth Siders, you're present? Yes, you are. Any other parties in support of Ms. Siders present? Okay, thanks. Any opposition present? Okay. Councilman, you do have, your time is not timed by the board's rules. Council folks are allowed to speak untimed, so you can choose to come at any point in the process. The folks in opposition, if you wish to speak, please work out your time. Again, you guys only have one chance to address the board during your 15 minutes. Ms. Siders, of your 15, you'll have some that you can save to rebut any testimony by the opposition. So we'll let you, if you've got a certain amount you'd like to deem up front, that's fine. Just keep an eye on the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, the clock will start and stop. It stops upon questioning by the board members. So, and answers to the board's questions are not timed, but testimony is timed. So, with that, if you'll give me just a second, if you ladies would identify yourselves, and I'll make our presentation first.
Sarah Sanderson Dowdy.
Ms. Dowdy, could you pull those microphones?
Sure. I'm Sarah Sanderson Dowdy. That's hyphenated.
I'm Julia Smith. I'm Beth Siders.
Okay, I'll show the photographs and the board, the Codes Department's record, and then I'll turn it over to you guys to proceed. The subject property is located on the northwest intersection of Olga Avenue and Riverwood Drive. You see here the property is bound in red on the property maps. The aerial photograph, please apologize for the scale of these. That house is not sitting halfway on the adjoining property, but this aerial photograph, as you know, sometimes does not line up with our property maps. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant. To orient you on the site plan, Olga comes here, Riverwood Drive runs this way, and north on the site plan would be toward the, if you follow the Riverwood Drive sign, that is north. The proposal by the applicant is to rework the driveway here with an entrance off of Olga with parking in this location and a loop drive bringing them out here at Olga. The play area would be located to the rear of the residence there. This is the subject property upon my visit out there to the site to take photographs for the board. This is looking into the subject property from the street. And then views, this is again Riverwood running north this way, Olga here, and then a view down Olga to the south in this photograph and showing the adjoining properties there too. This is the play area located at the rear of the residence. Upon my visit out there, I talked with the applicant. There were some changes that needed to be made out here. This photograph is probably going on 5 weeks old now, so I've not been out there recently before this hearing. She and I discussed some of the issues that may arise in regard to the fencing and play area or obstacles out here. This is the proposed area at the rear. I'm going to pull back up the site plan. Ladies and gentlemen, we had received and you all have copies of a petition that went around and have been received by the opposition. You had 4 individual letters outside of that petition, and some photographs were submitted by the opposition. I believe there's some additional paperwork they'd like to submit at the time of their coming up. And you'd also received a letter. Councilman Davis is present with us today, so I'll let him speak. But you have received a letter from him as well. And with that is the case record as the Codes Department has it. I'll turn it over to the applicant this time. Ms. Siders, again, your time is to your right, and you would want to save some of that for rebuttal. Okay?
Before we start, I want to disclose that I have ridden by the site and looked at it. So.
As have I also.
Mr. Harper and Mr. King, not together?
No.
Thank you. I can't do that. Thank you.
Okay. I am grateful to the board and to my neighbors for taking the time out of other important commitments in order to hear and contribute to the hearing of this case today. I am particularly grateful to the board for placing this case first on today's agenda. Thank you all. I currently provide child care out of my home to 4 children per day in addition to my own. I do so with a permit from Metro Codes. My purpose of business is to provide families in the East Nashville area an affordable, home-based, organic educational option in child care for children ages 2 to 6 years old. My goals are to provide the local community with alternative, small group childcare and to conserve a natural and safe physical environment for young children in the Riverwood area. The request before the board today is for a permit to operate as a special exception home daycare, which will allow me to provide care for no more than 12 children, and that includes my own. I will pursue further licensing from the Department of Human Services should I receive approval from the board today. Should I receive all necessary permits and approvals, I will seek to grow my program to a total of 12 children, inclusive of my own, in January of 2013 or June 2013. So it's not quite immediate. Prior to the original hearing on September 20th, I was unaware of the opposition from immediate neighbors. On 5 occasions, I made myself available at Riverside Village Courtyard for neighbors to voice their concerns. I made invitation once through flyer prior to the September 20th meeting and directly after distributed an apology for any offense I have caused and an invitation to meet with me via postal mail. I provided a direct phone number and email address on the flyer, as well as the mail letter in order to facilitate communication with me. No one in opposition availed themselves of these opportunities to communicate with me directly. Through neighborhood inquiries, I have gathered indirectly that the main opposition centers around 3 areas of concern. They are depreciation of property value, noise, and traffic. I first want to address the concern about property value depreciation. I am in the process of substantially improving my property to meet my family's needs and at the same time meet the requirements set by codes for the operation of a small home-based daycare. The changes I am making reflect my commitment to providing my family and community a safe and clean environment. We have already completed the widening of a bathroom door to meet ADA standards, and with codes approval have added a wraparound deck with ramp, as you saw in the pictures. We have removed horribly constructed fencing and new custom-built fencing being constructed in its place, and that is in progress still. Planned projects, several which are in progress, include a proposed gravel pull-through, exterior painting and window trim repairs, effective and expensive drainage solutions, bathroom renovations to meet ADA standards and DHS licensing requirements. Some of these projects require specific permits, which will be obtained through codes prior to project beginning dates, as has been my practice in all the renovations thus far. These projects will increase my own property value, and I want to stress that I have every intention of ensuring that the house remains a home. I am improving the house, renovating it to make it fully accessible. I do not see how improvements to property will depreciate property values in the neighborhood. The second point of concern is noise. Riverwood House operates between 8:15 a.m. and 3:15 p.m. Our outdoor time is between 12:15 and 1:15 p.m. and a little more depending on energy level or planned activities, which includes arts and sciences. The children's play area is exclusively in the rear yard, which is enclosed with a considerably high privacy fence. I have never received a complaint about noise and do not imagine a dramatic increase in noise as the business grows. Thirdly, there is the concern about traffic. Riverwood Drive in general is a somewhat well-traveled drive by fast drivers at that. We in the neighborhood have reason to be concerned about traffic from the churches nearby and the well-used Shelby Bottoms trailhead at the Moss Rose floodplain. This actually presents an exciting opportunity to organize to meet these needs. For example, we could petition for speed bumps or a yellow flashing light to slow down traffic in our neighborhood. As for the impact of my business on area traffic, I am working proactively to improve the flow of traffic into and out of my property. The proposed pull-through, which is on the site plan, will take away dangerous backouts into Riverwood Drive. Families and visitors will turn into Riverwood House from Riverwood Drive or Olga, but exit Olga. This will be a mandatory route for families attending the daycare and should vastly reduce the traffic impact of the growth of my business. Though I have people here with me today who support my appeal to the board, I want to be sure my neighbors have adequate time to speak and wish to reserve time to respond to concerns and support raised today. Again, thank you, board members and neighbors, for your consideration and time here today.
You said you currently have 4 children that aren't your own, and your own children?
I have I have 3 children.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I have 3 children. My 2 oldest are in public schools, and then my youngest stays home with me. Under DHS licensing, I'm not required to be licensed through them with 4 children other than my own. So I am in the parameters of a permit through codes.
So now there's a total of 4.
I'm sorry?
There's a total of 4 that you're keeping now.
4 other than my own. So I have 4 children who are not my own, and my 1 who stays home. So that's 5. But they're
Right.
not included. If I go over 5, then I have to include my children in that number.
And how many families do those 4 children represent?
Well, 4 per day.
No, I mean that you have now. Of the 4 children you have now, how many families is that?
Let's see.
Is it 4 families? 1 family?
I think it's either Henry and Silas, Caroline. 1, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that right?
Beth offers flexibility of scheduling, so some families are there 2 days a week, some 3 days a week, so it may be a total of 5 families?
Possibly.
I would imagine.
But never
On the
5
same day.
on the same day. Right? Yeah.
So what's the maximum number of drop-off and pickup you have now on a given day?
Well, I have a half day and a full day. So whatever children go home half day could be like 1 or 2, and then the remaining are 2 plus my daughter. Is that?
Yeah. As a parent who picks up, I'm almost always the only vehicle there when I pick up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and when I pick up on half days at noon.
Right.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to determine what the traffic's like now at the maximum.
Where my drive is on the corner, so even myself pulling out.
No, I'm in the traffic.
From the business.
The visits, the trips.
It's just like having a guest, or I mean, it's not.
But in the morning. Okay, how about this? In the morning, when is there a morning where you have 4 children in the morning dropped off? Mm-hmm. And so that at max could be 4 families.
At max, yeah.
Okay, and then at 3:15 it could be a maximum of 4 families now.
We do. There are. There are. Like I have 2 boys there, and I drop off her daughter. So 3 days a week, there's only 2 drop-offs. There's one other person, and I know that the other days, I walk my kids, and so really there are only like 1 or 2 cars coming in and out daily.
And so then if you get these approvals, then you'll be approved for 12 children max, correct?
That is correct, but I have to include my own children.
So it's an additional.
So it would be like
7
8 to 10 kids.
7 additional kids. From what you
my
have now.
oldest is 10. I think you don't count at a certain age. You don't count that child if they're past. I think it is 9 years old. You don't include that child, so it would actually be including my 6-year-old and my 4-year-old in that number. So it would be.
Okay, what I'm really trying to get to here
I'm
is
sorry.
at the maximum operational level, how many outside people will be coming to your property?
About 10.
So 10 people in the morning, 10 people in the afternoon.
Possibly. A lot of children are actually half days. That's
Okay.
what it's the majority.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then you'll have 9 minutes and 8 seconds for rebuttal. Oh, I mean, or do you want to speak? I'm sorry. Yep. Oh, okay. Then, yes, you'll have 9 minutes and 8 seconds for rebuttal, and we'll bring up either the councilman or, are you going to speak next, councilman? Okay.
Ladies, if you'll step back. For those wondering, Mr. Harper's nameplate was glaring. Light was hitting it just wrong. So, yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Councilman, again, your time is not time. So,
all the time in the world, then?
well, not really, but.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, speak button might help. I'll be very brief. You guys have a letter for me. Very tough situation, very sympathetic to the applicant. You know, as a district council member, obviously the applicant is a constituent. All the other folks are constituents. I'm the kind of guy who likes to make everyone happy, and unfortunately can't always do that. So, as you'll see in the letter, I had to stand with the opposition on this case. It was kind of unexpected, but you know, I had just a pouring of neighbors that were opposed to this, and sort of being of populist nature, I had to stand with them. You know, they'll obviously share their reasons, traffic and other concerns about the property itself, but you know, just with the nature of the situation and all the surrounding neighbors, I've heard from neighbors that are a little bit outside of the area that, you know, you had to give notices for, since you guys go a certain perimeter. Several neighbors have contacted me just a little bit outside as well. Just a lot of concerns overall. I didn't realize there was some neighborhood meetings scheduled. The opposition may speak to that more. I never heard of, I knew they were supposed to schedule them, and everyone was supposed to get together, and maybe we could have kind of come to some kind of agreement or compromise, but I didn't get notice of any meeting, and so I don't, you know, maybe the opposition will have more information on that. But you know, as it stands right now, just in my estimation, just too many folks against it in the immediate area, and so I'm standing opposed, and I appreciate your time. Any questions for me?
Yeah, from your perspective, I know we heard about meetings that were planned. And I think you've talked to both sides. Mm-hmm. Is there at some point in the future potential for any kind of compromise, or not?
I mean, that's more a question of the other neighbors. Right. You know, I'd be glad to sit down with everybody if folks want me to, just in the interest of my service. You know, and I, as I mentioned in the letter, I did talk to the applicant very, very early on. You know, with the sort of family style small scale daycare thing. Certainly believe in the principles of sustainability and you know, just kind of the natural vibe that you know, she was talking about, and definitely a fan of all that kind of stuff. It's just, I guess, when this, as you grow, things happen. You know, with any business, there can be growth, and you know, as the neighborhood just seems to be saying they don't want it right next to them, and that's very fair. It's a very fair point. It's a really tucked away section of Inglewood. You guys that drove by there know it's not, you know, even Riverside Village is in a little bustling commercial area. It's way tucked away from that even. It's not anywhere near Gallatin Road or Riverside Village or anything remotely commercial. And I know sometimes, you know, daycare is a very unique use, and you guys probably know more of that those, I guess, can be in this kind of area. I'm not really sure, but we don't have any others like that in Inglewood, and it's just a very tucked away section of Inglewood. So it was a very fair, valid point by the opposition, and as the expansion attempt has been happening, they've been very vocal to me, and that's why I'm here. So
I counted up the number of complaints we've gotten in writing, and I think the number's 31 in between the petition and then 2 others. Is 31 the right number, or is it higher than that, or I mean, you may not have counted. I just happened to do it for the heck of it.
I have a few more that weren't on the petition because I got the petition as well, and I'd probably say maybe about 40 because I can think of close to 10 maybe that just emailed me offhand and, hey, I'm a couple streets over and I saw the sign and then I started digging into this and this doesn't seem like it should be back here. And so as I said, very sympathetic. I understand the attempt here, but like I said, just hearing from that many folks, I had to show up and make sure I was with the more populist movement. So,
two quick questions here,
Sure.
Councilman. One being, was there much leaning toward any particular reason for opposition?
Other than just the number of folks and that sort of thing. To me, just the nature of where it is. I've looked at the site and I don't think it's like the most horrendous thing ever in the world or anything like that. It's just the nature of it being so tucked away. I'm very protective of our Englewood streets. We have a very, being the RS10 that it is and the zoning that it is, it's, obviously just wasn't meant for that. I mean, that's why you have to come somewhere like this to do what you're doing. So to me, it's mainly, it's not about, numbers and like a heavy traffic count. I mean, I don't really think that's the end all be all. It's more about, are you supposed to be doing that on these tucked away streets in the middle of a RS10 zone?
Question two, I'm overdosed on NyQuil and Mucinex, but
something's going around, I'm telling you.
It is. I didn't hear that you stated your name for the record that you came up, so I just wanted to be sure we got that on the record.
Yeah, Councilman Anthony Davis, District 7. So, great. Any other questions for me?
So,
David?
You don't think traffic's a big issue?
It may be somewhat, get Chip Knopf in here. Maybe he can elaborate on it. With that, they're very small streets. There is traffic on Riverwood in general. That is a nice little cut through street. Olga, there's hardly any traffic. I mean, so even a couple cars disrupts the Olga. But to me, that wasn't the biggest concern. It was more about just it being back there, and then these neighbors that just don't really want it back there, kind of thing. I mean, I understand we all have property rights, but we also have zoning for a reason. That's kind of what's at play there.
So
yeah, sorry.
Are you personally opposed to this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I am in a sense. I mean, just I kind of roll with my neighbors anyway. The majority of my neighbors, but it doesn't seem like it should be there. That's kind of where I stood. Is it a passionate enough against to get me out speaking? No, it was more about my neighbors that have the issue. So I'm here representing them, and the majority of the neighbors. But yeah. So.
Are you opposed to the improvements that she's proposing?
No, I mean, I don't think anything is about improving the property, as far as opposition. It's more about the use in general and sort of going up a notch in use and up a notch in traffic and up a notch in really becoming a commercial. I know it's only 12 kids, but I think I'm sure they'll go into this. My sense is that it's going up to that really viable daycare. Because I didn't hear about it before. I mean, keep this in mind. I never heard any opposition. When I initially talked with Ms. Siders, it was like, yeah, okay, a little small kind of family-oriented daycare thing, natural, great. If I start hearing from neighbors, that's when we may have a problem. Never heard from any neighbors, no complaints. I mean, apparently now I find out that they were a little concerned about some of the things on the property. There's this fencing thing, just little kind of codes things. Finding out there was some concern about that then, they just never brought it to me. But when you try to kind of and I really appreciate the applicant is going through the right way. I mean, hey, I guess they could have just started having 12 kids. They're trying to do it the right way. Also admirable. But that's when you kind of start getting concerns and people that are kind of seeing where it's leading to and that sort of thing. So,
is there a number that would be acceptable to you for children at this location?
I don't know that there's a magic number. If they could compromise with the neighbors, I would be okay with it. If folks weren't opposed to a certain number, then I'm okay. It's more about if the surrounding neighbors are up. I know how it would be if I lived right there. So if the surrounding immediate neighbors wanted to do some kind of compromise, I'd certainly be open to that. So I'm very, very open, but at the same time, very opposed as it stands because I have too many folks immediate and a couple rings out that just are against it.
And you said that you knew of about 10 or so more people than and the 30 that the Chairman had mentioned.
Yes, sir.
And Chairman, I haven't counted all these yet, but were you counting just the names on the list, or were you counting the ones where there's two people at the same address as one opposition or two opposition?
I counted the number of signatures and then the loose leaf oppositions we got. And so I think there are 29 on the petition and 2 others.
So I counted 32 and 21 households. Okay. So, but that was my own personal count. So it close enough.
I'm going to go with yours.
Right.
But it was the 21 households and
I counted 10 of the 10 groups of signatures that were the same household. Yep. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, and anything else from you guys? I would just say thanks to the applicant. Thank you to the other neighbors. I mean, it is a very tough situation, and we just want to do what's best for Inglewood, and so I'm trying to just search through that, and hopefully you'll hear more about the opposition and make your decision from there. And I thank you for your time.
With the board's indulgence, I meant to do this before they spoke, but better late than never. It's been a while since we've heard a daycare case, and so I'd love to hear the legal requirements by which we grant or deny one. So if Joey could lead us through that, and the opposition can come on up to the table, and while they're coming, we can hear from Joey.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I also, there's only an item C request for hearing.
Yes.
In the letter, there's something about item A, but I'm assuming that was just a
No, there's no A here.
Okay.
This is just the C under special exception uses, and this use is daycare homes are special exception uses. These are uses that the council that are not always commercial, residential in nature. Sometimes they're commercial, but are permitted in the residential districts by this board's approval. And so, in addition to the specific conditions, which are listed in 1716-170, the board also should find these are the applicability for all special exception uses that you have. The very first thing it talks about, the burden of proof is on the applicant. So this is not an entitlement that, although allowed in residential districts, shall be granted, and this is what the code says in Section A, shall be granted only after the applicant has demonstrated to the satisfaction of the board that all the required standards are met. It talks about compliance with the ordinance provisions. The use shall comply with all applicable regulations. And those, it talks about the specific. It's referring to the specific condition of a fenced playground and adequate parking for the use. Letter C talks about the board should also consider the integrity of adjacent areas, meaning that the board shall determine for its review that adequate public facilities are available to accommodate the proposed use, and that the approval of the permit will not adversely affect other property in the area to the extent that will impair the reasonable long-term use of those properties. The next one talks about design or architectural compatibility. Use like this, you may not have that. Sometimes in church facilities or schools or other types of special exception uses, but it talks about the operational or physical characteristics of the use shall not adversely impact abutting properties, including those located across street frontages. Site design and architectural features which contribute to compatibility include but not limited to landscaping, drainage access, building size, bulk, scale, roof areas, slopes, building orientation. Those are some of the things that fall under D. E talks about that the special exception uses, this will not, in residential districts, must comply with the tree protection regulations of the code. Letter F, historic preservation, this is not a historic property, so that one doesn't come into. G talks about traffic impact, that the applicant should demonstrate that the use will not adversely affect the safety or convenience of vehicular or pedestrian circulation in the area, and the board may require a traffic study for any special exception use. Letter H was repealed. Letter I talks about the proposed use shall reasonably protect persons and property from erosion or flooding, fire, noise, glare, or other similar hazards. J gives the board the ability to set special conditions on any special exception use, hours of operation, for that applicant only. If the property sells, someone else would have to come ask for permission. Daycare homes, in your board's rules, you have also deemed that no swimming pools are permitted on the property, no dogs are allowed on site at any time. Those are extra conditions that you as a board have adopted in your rules to be placed on all daycare home uses.
Thank you. I was actually after the 170, but I gather that you've already determined they meet all of 170, right?
There was nothing. Part of the review that we do when we file the appeal is to go through and look at the lot size and the street standard, or whether there's another within 1,000 feet of it. All those, okay. The applicant in that meets those requirements.
Okay, so we're now to
the specific conditions.
So it hits the 170. So we're just for the general, and
yes, sir.
Really what we're talking about is the integrity of the adjacent areas or traffic impact. I mean, because the others are. Okay. That's right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Wait, what section were you reading from? The last section, Joey?
1716 to 150.
Okay. I was just confused because in 170 it was talking about item C. It's the first class 1 starts at 13.
Oh, this is not a daycare center. This is daycare home. The applicant's correct.
All right.
Any children. So
it's really under D in 170.
It is under D. Any children for us, and the applicant alluded to having the 4-child daycare. We do not count any of the operators' children living on the premises toward any of their.
I don't want to confuse that. I was confused, but I'm better now.
Okay.
Okay. I think the opposition has its chance now if it'd like to come forward. And if each of you could introduce yourself for the record.
Joel, you said I could bring this to you. This is the revised petition with more signatures and introduce some more pictures.
You want me to go first? Yeah, if you want to.
Good afternoon. I want to say thanks to the board for allowing us to speak. Passed him a copy of the revised petition where after the last meeting there was a little more time.
I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself? We need your name for the record.
My name is Gary Steele. I live at 2400 Claypool Street, and I am within the 300-foot radius of this residence, so I did receive the letter from the board about this hearing. I provided Joy with a copy of the petition that has some additional signatures that were gained after the last meeting by some of the other opposition members. There's also some photos there. I wasn't sure if everybody had an opportunity to make it out to the site to see what's there currently. First, I want to say there's nothing personal here in our opposition against the resident or the applicant. My wife has met Beth before. She seemed like a very nice lady. I've met her husband at Halloween when they brought their kid down for trick-or-treating. It seemed like a nice couple. So there's nothing malicious or personal involved in this at all. I have a list of a few items, but the main one is number one, and this is a residential area. There's no noticeable businesses today. If there's a business at a home now, it's one that you don't see. It's somebody that's just in their house doing something, nothing that impacts traffic or noise, or you wouldn't know the business is there. My wife and I just completed a $200,000+ renovation and expansion on our home because we thought this is we've been there 12 years, and we're like, we want to stay even longer. So $200,000 worth of additions and renovations to our home, thinking this is where we want to be, this is where we want to stay, and the values of the properties around us seem to support that they're all going up. It's been 2 houses sell recently in the mid to high $300,000 range. This is an up-and-coming area, this little pocket of Inglewood. And my position to this daycare is that this just doesn't fit. If I were a potential buyer for the home that I live in, I wouldn't want to buy a $350,000 house with a 12-child daycare within eyesight, cars coming in and out in a gravel driveway that makes noise, kids that make noise, and so forth. It's not the end of the world. The sky's not falling. It's just that I know from my point of view, I would not want to live next door to this if I were looking to buy one of these houses. And I know already living there, I don't want to live next door or within eyesight of a daycare. I have 2 small children. I love children. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I hear lots of screaming and noise. It's a beautiful sound, but I just don't want to hear it all the time. The points I have beyond that, there's no single big item. It's just a whole series of little things that add to why you don't want a daycare next door. But this one, as you saw on the map, it's at a strange intersection. The actual house address is 1604 Riverwood, but only a few feet of the property actually touch Riverwood. It's primarily on Olga, but the current driveway is right in the split of the 2 roads, and it's not a 90-degree intersection. It's kind of a, I don't know, maybe a 45-degree. So it's kind of odd intersection when if you cut through Olga, depending on which way you're going, you're actually looking over your shoulder to see what's coming. So it's not really the best location for anyone to be coming in or out of as it sits. More traffic could just add to the problem. You know, there's no parking now. She has a solution. Seems viable as far as at least not making the people park on the street as they would if nothing were changed. That's not going to be very aesthetically pleasing. A large gravel turnaround, in addition to the monstrous ramped deck that was added on in the front that's 20% of the size of the house. I don't know, you can see in the picture, it's very business-like, not very residential at all. Very non-conforming to what's normally in the neighborhood, I guess you could say. There are no sidewalks currently, and in the past, the children are very often in the front yard, which was fenced with some kind of farm fencing, which has been taken down. There are no sidewalks, and on multiple occasions they go out and actually take walks. We've seen them on multiple occasions. They kind of just daisy chain with the applicant in the lead and the other children just kind of trailing behind them, and they have to walk in the street. We live near the river, and there are some nice things to walk and look at, but it's not a real safe area for that. I don't know if that would continue if there were more kids, or maybe it would stop completely, but that is a concern for their safety. All the houses are close together. Most of the lots are 1/4 acre, maybe up to 4/10 of an acre. So any noise that's there can be heard. Even with 4 children plus the 1 other, I can often hear them at my house. I mean, not that it's a horrible sound, but the noise is noticeable to our houses because we're a pretty tight-knit neighborhood. We were happy to see about it moving to the backyard, because in the past it seemed to be primarily in the front, and I can tell you it's a lot more than 1 hour a day of playtime. On multiple occasions when I come home from work, they're still out there in the late afternoon, sometimes with no supervision. I've seen that. And there has been a dog there in the past. Maybe the dog's gone now, but it's even gotten out of the gate and came down to some of our houses in the past. The dog may be gone, though, but I didn't realize that was not a option for a daycare. But to sum it up, the point of this is, you know, in my opinion, a daycare does not fit this neighborhood. I ask you to think to yourself, would you want to buy a house next door to a 12-kid daycare? Or if you already lived in a house, would you want that coming into your neighborhood next door to you? Do you think that would be a benefit to your neighborhood and your quality of life and your peace and quiet in your home?
I'm sorry, can I just want you to know, because, I mean, we're a quasi-legal body and we're bound to follow the law. And the law is that daycare are allowed in residential areas. I mean, they just are. And so really, if I were the opposition, I would focus much more on traffic and integrity of the adjacent areas, because I think that, I mean, just as a helpful hint, I mean,
all these things play into it. I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm an engineer, but not a traffic engineer, so I don't know what that impact would be. So I don't want to overstep and state something that's not correct, because I'm not legally or professionally trained to make those things. But that is certainly a concern, is the traffic. That intersection, if it were in the middle of the block, it wouldn't be nearly as bad as it is right smack in the corner, right there.
I will say that is a concern, at least for this guy. I mean, you're coming around that corner right where people are going to be pulling in.
And you notice
even
there's an
with the tree.
embankment there in the one photo on the Riverwood side. There's the street, and exactly where the street stopped, there's like maybe a 2-foot embankment, and there's a tree, and so I wouldn't say it's a blind corner, but it's not a really wide open area as it is on the opposite side of the intersection. So you could be coming around the corner, go to turn on to Olga, and bam, there's something there you may not have seen before you made the turn.
The current driveway is, as we're looking at the site plan, it's the upper one.
What's shown as the entrance there, yes.
So in the revised plan, no one would be exiting that.
How could we be sure that's enforced, though?
We can make it a condition.
I mean, so we're going to have to report every time somebody breaks the rule and go through.
What happens if people run stop signs?
Well, that's true. That's true.
I mean, we can make it a condition, and it can be, signs can be put up to that effect.
Okay.
But, and I'm sorry, Chairman, were you finished? Yes. I'm sorry. So some of the things you mentioned were the noise of the gravel drive. If the drive weren't gravel, if it were paved, would that make a difference to you?
That would make a difference, yes, sure.
If a traffic study said there would be no impact,
sure, like I said,
very minimal impact, would you be okay with that?
Sure. I mean, what I'm saying is the sky's not falling. I'm not like, I'm not going to move out of the neighborhood if this comes in.
Well,
I'm just saying it is going to have, I just feel that it's going to have a negative impact in all those ways.
Why do you think the property value would be decreased?
Have you seen the pictures?
Sure, but I mean, has a realtor told you this, or?
Yes, they've said that's not, well, I don't know how I could possibly measure what that impact would be. It's just
so it could be an improvement to property value.
I don't think so.
Well, then how could it be negative if you don't?
Well, I mean, having a commercial type business in the
Well, you're making an assertion, and if you're not going to back it up, I just want to clarify that it's just an opinion.
Yeah, it is my opinion. All this is my opinion. I'm not a legal counsel.
So how much noise is the current noise unacceptable?
Oh no, it's only 4 kids there, 4 or 5 kids. It's
so 2 more kids.
Well, I'm not worried about 6. I'm worried about 12 is what I'm worried about.
So what is your breaking point?
I guess I hadn't thought of a breaking point.
We're trying to find a compromise.
Yeah, sure. And everybody appreciates that because, we're not just trying to stop somebody from making a living because we certainly want someone to have a chance to make a living. So
it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for compromise.
Sure.
And I'm only addressing what you said.
I'm just speaking for myself. I don't speak for the body. I'm just speaking as one resident. Everybody else can speak on their own.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your answers. Thank you very much.
I see my children previously had gone to a ladies' daycare that was at a home that had 10 kids. And I saw, it was in Hendersonville, and she had the zoning exemption and so forth, but I saw what was occurring with 10 kids. I personally had to go there every day to get them in the morning and then drop them off and pick them up in the afternoon. And I just remember thinking, and I don't have them there anymore, but I thought, I wouldn't want this next door to me. And her neighbors complained often because we ended up having to park in front of her house, the neighbors' houses and so forth, in and out. So so I would be a little concerned about that additional.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you so much.
My name's Charles Strong, and I know Beth very well, too. I live right next door to her, and I'm opposed. There's several reasons why. Main thing is Riverwood right here in Ogre, where you turn on to. Riverwood especially is a very dangerous street. There's a lot of accidents right there on that corner over the years, and I've lived there since 77, and there's been a bunch of accidents over the years, and the people come up Riverwood right there where they turn on to Olga, you're right there cutting right across the driveway in front of it. And I know for a fact, since she's been, I'm a good neighbor, I don't complain about nothing, but she's only been keeping 4, which is 7 since she's got 3 of her own. And but it's not just like they come and drop them off and then they come back and pick them up. These are friends of hers that drive up and down the street, and you can tell a big difference. I mean, that stop in and out all day long, whether they're picking up the kids or not. They're not just dropping them off. They come back and forth, and they don't have any place to park. One car right there fills up the whole thing, and they always, fills up in front of their house, where she got that little circle right there. I mean, if they park up too far, they're actually across their driveway. They're getting into Riverwood. If you back up a little bit, so they usually park over here in front of my house. and across the street. And this is only with her watching 4 kids. And like this one woman back here stated, you know, she lives on the street and she walks her kids down there. So, and it's, you know, I mean, you was talking about the puddling and ponding. That is the very end of the street right there. And the water, when it rains, it does puddle and pond right there. And right there on that corner right there used to be a bus stop. That's where, when I was young and I used to ride with my aunt and uncle to town and stuff, and the city itself had decided it's way too dangerous, I guess, for the bus to run through there. So there don't even buses run up and down Riverwood there anymore. And really, I just think that, you know, I mean, to let one person open a daycare to please one person when the rest of the neighborhood is very much against it, or most of the neighborhood. And we didn't realize it was like a popularity contest where you had to go out to try to get a bunch of signatures. We was mainly concerned about the property owners and the people that, and we didn't even really ask too many of the renters at the time, but we thought it was, you know, the property owners and stuff, you know, to whether or not they would like this in our neighborhood. And we kind of like our little quiet neighborhood that we've got and stuff, and that's, and
I hate to be technical. It's not a popularity contest. I was just trying to gather the scope of the problem. In fact, it could be 100 or 200. That's not it. I mean, you notice when he read the legal requirements, none of it was number of people in opposition. I was doing that for my own.
Right.
Trying
okay.
to get
Well,
as much
I
out
was
of the
just
councilman
thinking,
as I could.
but we just talked to the people that actually live around the, you know, around the area, and nobody really wants daycare. We don't really care that Beth watches a few kids and stuff like that. But just with her, the little bit that she does, I mean, what she has done is when she is running just with the 4 kids. The traffic on the road is a whole lot worse, and I couldn't imagine with more. And that's all I got to say. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed your last name, sir.
Strong.
Strong?
Strong,
Oh, okay.
S-T-R-O-N-G.
I'm sorry, I misheard that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Bruce. I live on Olga Avenue, 2014. My concern is the property, how I've seen it change, I guess. It's gone from looking like a home to looking like a daycare, to kind of looking like a Boy Scout camp, and then to looking like a farm when they put up the pig wire fencing all around the front yard. Pig wire's 4-inch by 4-inch fencing. And that was a concern to me, and I guess I kind of wanted to address why I didn't respond to any pre-meetings, because I felt like there was a lot of disrespect for the neighborhood to have. There were bales of hay sitting in the front yard at one point. The front garage door was a shower curtain. People would come to see me and say, what's going on with that house on the corner? So I guess I don't have faith, if you will, that it would maintain some kind of residential-looking integrity. And I guess the ramp was approved, but it just kind of doesn't even make it look like a house anymore. And I guess it's ADA compliant. But my concern was that approval for more kids would just mean that that was permission for it not to look like a house anymore.
Could I say something else? I'm sorry. I noticed Beth was saying that she tried to be real open and stuff, and this is not true at all. I live right next door to her, and I talked to her and stuff, and when they was building on the deck and stuff, I talked to her and several times and thought it was nice and stuff. She never once mentioned anything about wanting to have kids and stuff. Her mom was coming over and had a cane. I thought maybe she was doing, you know, they was updating it for, you know, like her parents or something, to her mom to stay there, different people and stuff. And she said that, and say, you know, we all work. She has these things down at the social club for whenever they want to run down the street, but we're all at work. We can't make those meetings and stuff. And really, the attitude of the neighborhood doesn't want it, and that's not really going to change whether she paints it pink or orange. I can see there. And I also wonder, I know that her house, I know it's legal to have it on there, but it's the only house that's left that's, is asbestos shingles, and the government decided that wasn't, they outlawed that way back when, if it's already on your house, it's okay. You're allowed to paint it, but you have to have people with hazmat suits come out there and take it off. I don't even know if that's really healthy for kids to be in that environment, to tell you the truth, if you're talking about health issues. Anyway, that's all I have to say. She wasn't really forthcoming, and we do talk, and we're friends. We're good neighbors, and I've got nothing against Beth, but it's not like she was very forthcoming and talked to her neighbors or anything about it. If she would have talked to her neighbors about it ahead of time, she would have known that we wasn't, that we wouldn't have been for a daycare there. She wants to babysit a few kids is one thing, but to have a whole daycare there, that's not really what we want as homeowners. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you, you made a comment about you thought maybe her mother or whoever was walking with a cane would be using that ramp. Would that make the ramp any more palatable to you if one of the residents in the house needed that ramp for access into the house? How would that affect you?
No, sir. The ramp doesn't bother me. That didn't have anything to do with it. What I'm saying is she said that she wasn't very forthcoming with the neighbors and telling us what she was doing or anything, and I'm just saying that she said that she tried to be open, but she never talked. Even though, like when I talked to her right there in the yard, in the side yard, talked to her, she never mentioned anything about wanting to have kids. I was just saying that she wasn't very forthcoming as far as what she was trying to do. Wanting to have or anything. It's not like she went around and asked anybody ahead of time, would y'all mind, or, is it,
Thank you. You look like you wanted to respond to my question to him. Did you want to respond?
Well, just to say that it's the only time we got notice that there was a change was when we saw the sign out front. And after that, when she saw there was opposition, then, I want I don't want to be painted like mean old neighbors who wouldn't play right. It was just we weren't involved until we saw the sign.
Did you get a letter from codes?
No. I'm probably outside of that 300 foot. I'm on down Olga.
Any more questions for the opposition?
I guess I'll just extend the question that I asked Mr. Steele.
Strong?
No, I asked Mr. Steele earlier. Is that right? Steele? Okay, I'm sorry. Is there anything? Is there a compromise that either of you can see, or would make it more palatable to you or agreeable?
Well, 4 that's already 7, with their own 3. So that's.
Ma'am?
I don't know. For me, the straw that broke the camel's back was the pig wire in the front yard. I couldn't imagine anybody who lived in the neighborhood would want to put that around their front yard, even if they had a daycare. So the trust that it's going to still kind of look like a house is not there for me. So.
Isn't the pig wire gone now, or is it?
Yeah, it's rolled up. It's still in the yard, and the posts are still in the ground, so it could be put up very quickly. I'm not saying that's their intent. I'm just saying it's not gone.
We can let the appellant address that question. Was there any other opposition that wanted to speak, you think?
Did you want to speak, ma'am? I'd just like to make full disclosure to the to everybody that my deck and my screening and porch is pig wire, and I have asbestos on my house as well. Just want to let everybody know that.
Okay, ma'am, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Rita Bogle. I live at 1701 Riverwood, directly across the street from Ms. Siders. She's kept kids ever since they've lived there. There hasn't been a problem. The noise issue, for me, I work shift work. It has been a problem with the number she has, because sometimes I'm trying to sleep. Other times I'm trying to work in my yard and be peaceful. That's not a horrible thing. I can live with that. I'll go to the backyard where it's not as loud if I have to. The main thing is 12 is a commercial endeavor. It's not a mom and pop. Keep a few kids. It's commercial. If she wants to keep 12, then get a storefront on Gallatin Road or in an area where it's easily accessible for her clients. Our little tight, shortened roads, narrow, no shoulders on them, it's going to be a problem, especially in the winter if the weather gets bad. And that's the main thing for me. It's a commercial endeavor. It's not a mom and pop endeavor. And I don't think it's fair to the rest of us to have to live with it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other questions for the opposition? Okay, we'll close that and we'll open rebuttal time for the applicant. Okay, yes, ma'am. You can rebut anything that's been said. You just can't really go into new topics.
I'm happy to compromise, foremost. And I do regret that invitations and flyers were not sent to the councilman. That was an oversight on my part, although I did send an email very prior to all this asking for his support, or if he had any advice on how to interact with oppositional neighbors. And I didn't know the opposition at that point, and it was just, preparing myself. Let's see. This is admittedly a variance, not a typical use of a property such as this, but it is why we're here. There are other child cares in the residential area that are not within, the required distance. There is a progressive child care on Greenfield, which it is, I think, a home turned into a daycare. I'm not aware of the amount of children, but it is still looks very much like a home with, added features as a daycare. And it's on a corner too, not as, complex as the one that I'm on. But there is another one that it turned home to daycare. For the philosophy of my school, it's tucked away. I mean, that I find to be a protective attribute for a daycare, is being tucked away, and the residential property is ideal. It's not a running standard commercial daycare. The service provided is a benefit to Inglewood. There are multiple Inglewood families that come to Riverwood House and who have in the past. I know Coase doesn't, we had a dog on the property, but he is no longer with us anymore. He has been adopted by a friend, so that isn't even an issue anymore. Let's see. I only take walks with my own children. I don't know really where that part came into play. I would never take, a string of 4 to 5 children in that area, because Riverwood Drive is dangerous. But I've taken my own children on multiple walks because we love the neighborhood and we like the little pocket that's near the river there. Let's see. Late afternoon play, again, has been with my own children. There are never children past 3:15 who are not my own. And a lot of families, my friend who lives down the street, who her boys come to my house, I mean, that's a neighborhood thing. If they're ever at my house, it's because they're a neighbor, and I find that to be a little different. Let's see. I'm working to address the awkward placement of the driveway, obviously. I'm admitting this is a problem. It's been a problem since we've lived here, even before I even started caring for children. I would be happy to pave it if that would satisfy neighbors. There is no more street parking. I have asked people to pull in and have made that more possible with the driveway that we already have, and would like to make it I'm required to have 5 parking spaces on the property. So that is what I'm working to do, to keep cars off the street. Let's see. Pleasing for families, serve not. Sorry, I was just in there. The fencing, there was wire fencing for a while, and it was an incomplete fencing project that on my husband and our part, it was a failure. So it's taken down and it is rolled up. It just has not been removed from the property yet. It's being replaced with 2x4s that are already up, and the wood construction is vertical to match the ramp. I don't know if you can tell on the ramp deck that it's vertical fencing, and that will be on the perimeter of the property. So that has not even been finished yet. So it will be complete wood. There's no metal involved. The community meetings that I scheduled were usually later in the evening or on a weekend in the mornings, so it was never during the day where people might be at work. I know maybe some people do have later shifts at night, and I'm sorry that we couldn't compromise a date on that. If there was any asbestos removed, it was by a certified asbestos removal company, especially on the garage when my husband and I had to repair it. That has been repaired, and it's a detached garage. It's not used for a garage. It will be used for a studio, but that's my personal reason for the detached space. And it has 2 doors on it now, and it didn't have a shower curtain. It was, I think, drop cloth, just to, protect everything that was in the garage until we could get to the project. Let's see. I contacted the people who were required to be contacted, and I sent apology for that lack of previous contact. So I have been proactive all through the process, and to like your consideration. So thank you.
I'm curious to know, you said you're getting ready to finish the fence that's out front with 2x4s, and I'm just curious to know why you're finishing the fence if you're asking for basically that fence to be torn down and replaced with a driveway.
The perimeter of the property, there's, the both sides. Though that fencing, the posts were not taken out because I wanted to keep the front of the house property bordered in. So that fencing is being replaced with wood fencing. When you come around to the front, it's kind of still. The man that I'm working with, he has taken estimates on how to make it a pull-through. So the fencing that is left up is just the fencing that's left in between. Like, it's not, I don't know if that makes sense.
It's partial fencing.
It's partial fencing. It's not a complete fencing.
Okay.
But when it is finished, it will look like the fencing that is on the deck and the ramp, so where it has vertical wood slats, and it has wood that actually crosses over to make it clean and an improvement to the property. So that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure exactly where the fence, I saw a lot of fencing in the front of the yard, and I wasn't sure how you were going to, it looks to me like most of the front of your yard is going to be either gravel or paved.
Right.
And I just wasn't sure how that front yard fencing was, and it's not necessarily a big deal. It's very curious to me that you're spending money to finish something in the front yard. Is what I thought I heard that you're thinking about pretty quickly removing and.
No, the fencing.
It's not the same thing. Okay,
No,
I just want to make sure that I knew what you were talking about.
The previous fencing that the opposition neighbor was talking about, the pig wired fencing, that was fencing that was old and not very well thought through. So it's been removed to be replaced with a better fencing solution that is aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood and, to our property. So it would actually be an improvement and a value to the property. So.
I'm just going to say for the record, because I think it's important everybody know, Metro has a planning commission which talks to land use, and they have recommended approval of this project, which speaks to I think the integrity of the adjacent areas, because that's where we're supposed to ask for it. But it leaves, at least in my mind, the traffic issue. And so I'm going to try to get back to what Mr. Harper was asking you. What is the potential maximum number of cars that are going to come to your house at either 8 or 3:15, and you have 5 parking spaces? And so what is that maximum number? Because I understand you've got your kids, you've got the woman who walks her kids. And we could order a traffic study, but they're very expensive. What are you estimating the number of cars, and when would they arrive?
I would say my own car would be parked up the driveway to where it's not in any of those parking spaces. So my car would be, completely left on property until I would have to get my own children. So I'm there. That car never moves until about 3:30. But with the other cars coming through, I would say about 5 to 6. For the amount of required parking, I would say 5, and that's just just because if I'm required 5, I would think that there would be 5 at least.
And you may not know this, but how many are coming on Riverwood and how many are coming on Olga? Because the Riverwood seems to be a more natural turn, to me at least, than the Olga. Where are your people coming from?
I see you guys come Olga most of the time. And then I believe in the past there's been some families who are mostly Riverwood. And my take is for the families who are attending to have whatever route is approved, if it is approved, those families are required to follow that route. They will have a map with arrows like this, and it's for safety reasons, because I've seen so many people, including myself, pull out of my driveway, and it's tough. And so from imagining a pull-through would just take that kind of danger out of the equation and let it flow a little easier. Because Olga, there's not a lot of traffic.
There's a stop sign on Olga, but not on Riverwood?
There's not. So, I think there are 3 possibilities of putting a stop sign, putting a yellow flashing light, speed bumps. I really think it could be compromised to where it's not just helping me, but it's helping that pocket of community, because people drive crazy, and it's a very narrow road, and it's always been an issue. I've been there for 9 years, and I started this maybe 3 years ago. It's always been an issue, not just me having a daycare creating traffic. In Shelby Bottoms Trailhead, there's a Shelby Bottoms Trailhead very close, and I've seen more people traveling to that trailhead, and there are churches in the area. So, there's going to be a fluctuation of traffic, not just from me, but from area entities. So I find this to be an opportunity to take care of Riverwood Drive in that area, regardless.
How did you come up with 12 children, just out of curiosity?
I think the codes is kind of broken up, and DHS is broken up to where you don't have to be licensed through DHS if you have 4 children other than your own. Once you add one more that's not your own, which makes 5, you have to add, you have to go through codes approval and DHS licensing. And 12, I'm not really sure, because I know Yeah, I mean, it's all in like a stratification.
So what is your plan? I mean, do you plan on maximizing that, or is there a number that you would be happy to?
I am happy with 12. I mean, I'm happy with 10. I just know that there are families in demand who really, they look into my program, and they're very interested in what I'm doing. I'm Montessori certified, and that educational aspect is in that, and it's a universal education. And
so would you also be willing to stipulate if we put a condition similar to what you've already said about time of operation? You said 8:15 to.
Fall, spring, Monday through Friday, 8:15 to 3:15, and it fluctuates. Like I offer half time, which is 8:15 to about 12:30.
So if we were to say, between the hours of 8 and 3:30, that would be acceptable.
Oh yeah, in the summer, and actually the hours get shorter. I only offer on Monday through Thursday. Was it 9 to 2:30? So it's even shorter in the summer when a lot of kids are out of school. So I'm actually taking away from that.
And you're willing to pave the proposed driving and parking area?
I'm willing to pave as long as it keeps to a natural, like I don't agree with asphalt,
like
but with
pervious,
pavement, yes, I am in agreement.
Somebody
with that.
recommended pervious. It was planning had recommended approval with consensus reached on pervious parking material or another parking material that is less intrusive to the character of the adjacent residential properties, whatever that means.
I'm in agreement with that,
okay.
Yes.
That kind of generated my question about the number of people, because apparently the number of required on-site parking spaces may be driven by the number of children or something. And it looks to me like the majority of the front yard now is going to be filled up where it totally goes away from the residential.
So was
my big concern.
Was this parking number driven by the potential of 12 students or children?
Yeah, I think with codes you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces with amount of children.
Joey, excuse me 1 second. Okay, never mind. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I'm one of the concerns. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that there is, implicit in any approval that all the codes would be met. So, if you had to have 6 spaces, I'm just throwing out numbers, then you would have to comply with that. If we approved this, that doesn't get you out of any other code requirements. I just want to be clear about that.
I totally understand that.
Yeah, and you've been a neighbor for a long time, and I'm a little bit concerned about the kind of magnitude of the opposition, and I know it's not. We don't count signatures necessarily, but a lot of people gave up their day to come here to say, we don't want this in our neighborhood, and it doesn't appear to me that there has been extensive neighborhood conversations in terms of outreach to your council person and to the neighborhood, and so there was expressed by the opinions expressed by the opposition of maybe a lack of trust that you're really going to do what you say you're going to do, because they had different opinions about what you're doing now. And so I guess I'd like for you to I know you've addressed some of the meetings that you've said, and it's a concern of mine that there haven't been more conversations, but I would like for you to help us understand if there's any reason from your perspective why people might have a trust issue.
Honestly, I don't really have an answer for that. I'm a very to myself person when it comes to, if this is a character analysis. I'm a very to myself person. I have 3 kids, and it's sometimes intimidating, especially all this opposition has occurred, to approach a neighbor who's in opposition, especially when I'm by myself. Not that I don't trust these neighbors, but it's the last meeting that we had here, I was kind of not traumatized, but a little, whoa, I didn't know all this. And so I don't have a clear answer for that, although I do want to say that I had no intention of offending anyone or crossing any kind of, boundaries or anything like that. I know codes requires applicants to get in touch with neighbors, and it might not have been in a timely fashion, but I did, and I tried to make it in a neutral zone so that it's not, they're on my turf or I'm on their turf, territorial thing. I wanted it to be a community discussion, and nobody, there were 2 instances where I even apologized, and nobody came to me, and so I don't have really a true answer for that. Sorry.
Just thank you.
Joy, is the number of parking spaces driven by the number of children up on the sidewalk?
Well, not as the code's written, not to some degree. For daycare homes, which is classified, it's 1 space plus requirement for principal use. Okay, so you got 1. There's 2 for all houses, so that's 3, and then plus 2 spaces for patrons is what the code says. So 5 total required on site. Of those, 2 are for the residents. So really 3 for the use and 2 for the residents is what the code requires.
Is there a code relative to the maximum number of paved or covered area in the front yard?
No, but because under the code, this doesn't cross into the threshold center. The center threshold, rather. I said that backwards. Daycare centers are required to asphalt parking lot, surface and stripe, handicap spaces like you see out here in our parking lot. The home daycare centers, we do allow those spaces to stack in a driveway. The idea is to make it more residential in appearance, in that it doesn't, there's a threshold between centers and home daycares, that centers we get into more requirements for them in the way of parking and landscaping and such. But to answer your question, there's 5 total for this use, 2 of which is for the house, and then 3 for the home daycare use.
But they are allowed to stack, so possibly some of this parking area that's in the front of this house could be reduced somewhat to create more green or a less impacting looking front yard is, I guess, what I'm trying to get to.
That's a determination you all have to make on what the appropriate route is.
May I say something about the parking? The man who came to kind of look, and it's on the site plan, it wouldn't just be gravel thrown down. If that is, decided, I'm willing to compromise anything that will be of agreement with neighbors and with the board and whoever else is dealing with this case. I do know in the neighborhood, people who have, neighbors who have been required to have parking spaces that are on their property have had to go into their green yard, and they're required to have wood post outlines, or you know what I mean, and have the gravel filled in there. So it's not just gravel thrown down, it's an aesthetically pleasing parking space. So not saying that, it would be an agreement with other residents, but it would, I think that it would give the more natural, the natural presence of a residence if it was kept in that way. But we have cypress trees that are in the front yard and some butterfly bushes that I would like to plant more of, and they grow to about 80 feet. So I was thinking of planting those along the front of the ramp, because there's been talk of how, of magnitude it is. I'm willing to do things that, are good for the environment and, are in agreement with the neighbors.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and enter into discussion.
Thank you, ladies. You can take a seat. Thanks.
Anybody want to start the discussion?
Well, I think, from my perspective, if I like a lot of what I hear about the facility. I think it sounds like it would be a really cool place. And had it come to us without opposition or with minimal concern or opposition, I think I really probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But I really do have a problem that there's not any general consensus, and the council representative has expressed his opposition and that of the neighbors, and I think that's an issue.
Pretty much my sentiments exactly. I see a need for such a facility. The site is pretty restricted. I mean, it looks like they're trying to do a lot with a small amount of property. I wish I knew a solution. I don't personally have one.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling on that is, I feel like we could all come up with something creative. Maybe everyone could live with it. We've asked everybody to come and hear it. I don't know that I'm in a position to vote for it today, but I would love for them to work with the council. I'd like for the appellant to work with the councilman and neighbors. And I have a feeling that from some of the neighbors that we've heard from, there may not be any solution that's acceptable, but from others, I think there might be. And I don't see evidence I see evidence of effort, but there's not evidence of connectivity. I think the effort has happened. I certainly believe the appellant that she tried and tried hard, but clearly from the opposition that has shown up, there was not connectivity. I mean, it never did connect with the opposition, never connected with the council person in the way that would have truly delivered maybe a more thoughtful conversation offline out of this body that would have come to us with a different proposal. And maybe it's the appellant's job to do that and not ours to come up with an acceptable solution.
Okay, I'm going to note a couple of things.
Well, I was going to say that, to some, well, I think I disagree with David and Dick on this, on the opposition issue. Opposition in and of itself is not a reason to deny something like this. And my reading of the standard is that they're not doing anything, to put it in very simplistic terms, that granting this doesn't do undue harm. Somebody saying something will do harm is not harm. Saying property values will go down does not mean the property values will go down. And saying traffic is a problem, or this will make traffic worse, does not make it so. And that, traffic specifically, is, all of this is really upon the appellant. The specific things that have been brought up, the appellant has either agreed to, the things that are within her power. She obviously cannot change whether there's a stop sign or a flashing light or anything like that. But, the material of the driveway, the aesthetics, the noise that she's addressed. I mean, I don't know that an hour or two a day of children playing is, how that's different than any other hour or two of the day. I know there's children playing in my neighborhood all the time, especially after school, which are not her hours of operation. And she's willing to agree to specific hours of operation, a specific number of people. She's over the code in parking. And I guess the way I'm looking at this is, what else could she do to use something that is illegal use? And it's unfortunate that that there's opposition to it, but I don't know that the opposition is well-founded, and I don't know that it's. I don't think there's any malice involved, or I don't think it's anything personal. People are always worried. We see this all the time. It's always traffic. It's always property values. Yet I've yet to see any evidence of that it's like saying, look, there's people at our house all the time now. There's traffic back and forth all the time. So then how does that make the traffic worse if you have people coming? So I don't know. I think she's taken, I think she meets the standards personally. I can understand if you don't agree with that, but I don't know what else she could do to make it acceptable and to the code. I mean, I think she's there and has gone further than other applications we've seen.
Being an ever practical man, I will note that because of to win approval, she would need 4 people. It does not seem as if there are going to be 4 people vote in favor. And the only thing, I just want to clarify why we're acting, because we are required to act under the requirements of 150, and we are most distinctly not a popularity contest. You know, it doesn't matter whether they show up with 300 signatures. But what I hear the two of you saying, and I won't disagree with, I actually would probably side with David Harper, but what I hear the two of you saying is that it will have an impact on the integrity of the adjacent areas because it is getting closer to commercial in nature, and you are informed on that because of the traffic impact, is what I hear the two of you saying. Because I hear David Harper saying we've hit all the criteria, and I think it's academic what I would say, but isn't that what you two are saying? I mean,
I'm pretty much trying to say, I suppose, that I see a workable solution there. I don't know. I don't have that solution presently, but I think there probably is a workable solution. I see a need for the facility. And I agree. I see daycare centers in residential neighborhoods, although I'm not aware of one close to that neighborhood. I know there's one up near the Greenwood, Greenfield. Well, there's a lot of green somethings over in that area, but I'm familiar with 1 or 2 over there. But I would like to see maybe if there's a way to get a resolve with the neighborhood to find a solution to make it workable so that everybody. I'm like you. I like win-win situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a solution, and I think there is a compromise. It really just comes down to if anybody's willing to agree to that. And then, you know, again, it's not a popularity contest. So if they come back and they say, here's what we agreed on, but we disagreed on almost everything, you know, then we're back to the position of, you know, we just have to see, has the effort been made? And I'm wondering if that's more of your issue. Is it, you know, is it the effort, or is it the, you know, the final issue?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think that, you know, if the effort had been made and there truly had been a conversation, then maybe I would feel more comfortable with a board-driven compromise. You know, I mean, I don't have a problem with saying, you know, talking about, you know, is it, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12, you know, kids, and what the conditions are for the driveway and that type of thing. I don't have a problem coming up with that, but I'd much rather it be, like I said, I'd rather it be driven by the neighborhood and the appellant.
I agree, and I would only make those recommendations, or I would only make those a part of it if it made sense. I mean, it's not a compromise if we're forcing the compromise. Here's what you're going to do. I would rather them come back and in the past we've done that. We've said, you know, we've asked the council person if they would moderate a meeting, and we table the vote. We don't.
Right. So I was about to say, so we've got one of 2 options. Somebody can either make a motion to approve or to disapprove, which will kill it, or one of us can make a motion to defer and ask the applicant to speak with the council person to try to strike a compromise.
Mr. Chairman, not exactly. With only 4 members here, a non-unanimous vote, up or down, the case is automatically reset for November 15th and refiled, meaning it would be open for all 7 members to participate.
Can we leave the public
rules?
But we could still table it, and the 4 of us would have to hear it.
Yes, if you tabled it, then you are stuck with you 4 must hear this case again. In either path, but I lay that out to you procedurally, not to influence.
So, well, the nice thing about us, if we table it and we're all 4 here, which is, I mean, we would have to commit to being here out of respect for the folks that are applying, but you know, we you know, what I would like to avoid is another hour and a half hearing for the whole board since we've all heard it before, which I think would have to happen, right?
Essentially, and I'll ask the zoning examiner to correct me if this is wrong, but with our boards and commissions, the other board members who are not present today would be able to review the entirety of the public hearing that took place today via the video audio that's been prepared.
Actually,
so that they can be fully apprised.
Not exactly. It would actually be a de novo hearing, a brand new hearing.
If we voted.
If they voted.
If you voted.
How do we not vote without kicking this to a rehearing? I mean, can we leave the public hearing open and agree to vote after we hear from the councilman at the next meeting?
This board has to either defer the case or vote it up or down.
But if we defer it, the four of us have to hear it, and then it just takes off.
If there's a deferral.
Deferral locks.
It doesn't start it over.
Deferral locks you four in.
Oh, okay.
The other three could participate if they watch these proceedings, because that's what John was talking
And then does it start over, or do we just?
No.
Okay, perfect.
I think that's what I was heading. I was just using the wrong. I would rather defer at this point. If the appellant wants us to vote, we can vote.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we would like to vote for a deferral, but we would not have a whole hearing. We would have either just the council person speak or the council person and the applicant for some limited period of time.
I would, something to that effect would be my motion.
Okay, would you prefer to hear just the council person or the applicant?
Should we ask the councilman if they're willing to do this, or quick to open the hearing to hear from the councilman?
Or just not, but yeah.
That's one of the perks of being a councilman.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely get a meeting together, and we can maybe come up with some kind of compromise. I'll come present. I'm glad to do that. Anything we can do to bring both sides together, hopefully work something out. So,
I mean, I think we've heard all the argument and positions we're going to hear, and usually we ask the council we'll say we're only going to hear from the council person, and the council person, we're not deferring to the council person to come back and tell us what to do. We're saying, please have the meeting and please report to us what the meeting was, and that way we don't have to open up any of this other stuff, and then we'll decide on what we've heard and then what you report, if that's acceptable to you.
Okay, so then I'm going to make a motion to defer this case for a month and encourage the parties to speak and use their council person as a mediator, and then we will not reopen the hearing, though the other three could review the hearing and participate, and let the council person report.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
This case will be deferred till the November 1st hearing. That is our next hearing 1 month from today. November 1st, 1 p.m., this room. Actually, strangely enough, first case on the agenda again because the board made the deferral, so we'll hear it first.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to take just a 2-minute recess for...
Board will be in recess. I'm happy to talk to either party if they wish to.
How long did it take? 2 hours?
Almost 2 hours. That's like an hour and 45 minutes.
And where did we go?
Property located at 327 Rural Hill Road, requesting an item D appeal. That's a change in nonconforming use in the OR 20 district to convert the existing nonconforming retail space to a takeout barbecue restaurant referred to the board under section 1740 180D. The appellant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740 180. The applicant present? Are you? Yes. Yes, please come forward. Any parties in support for the case present? Okay. Any parties opposed to the case present? Mr. Chairman, seeing no opposition present, you'll have 10 minutes to present your testimony. Counsel lady, you are not timed, but let me go through the case record. The board has not heard this case yet. For the record, we have received 2 letters in opposition to this case in our files. Members, you should have copies of each of those. The subject property is located in the OR 20 district. This is located just east of Murfreesboro Pike on Rural Hill Road. You see the property there in red. This is an aerial photograph of the subject site. And the proposed site plan, the applicant before you is proposing to take the end tenant space, which you see I'm highlighting in my cursor here, that was a retail establishment, and convert it to a restaurant. Neither retail nor restaurant are permitted in OR 20 districts. That is why this is a change of non-conforming use. And I'll read over the board standard right at the end of my portion of your review standards. This is looking at the subject property. Again, the tenant space in question is here. These are photographs of the adjoining properties across.
Joey, I'm sorry. In that view, which is Murfreesboro Road?
Murfreesboro Road in this is right here.
Okay.
And then this one is on this end. That first view, Murfreesboro Road, would be back to my left, up the hill there.
Okay.
So the next photographs you see besides this one is 180 degrees the other direction here. And then to the left. And then views of the existing site that's there. I really refer to the site plan, probably shows the better example. This case started to be heard before we really got into testimony. There was a request by the applicant for a deferral with the support of the council lady requesting that deferral. The board approved the deferral request, and to this date, we are back here today, and the board's review standard in this type of appeal is the standard in this is outlined in section 1740-650 of the Metro Code Law. This is letter C4, and it says, in mixed use and non-residential districts, which OR 20 is, an existing non-conforming use may be changed to a new non-conforming use upon a determination by the Board of Zoning Appeals that the new non-conforming use will be more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use. So that standard is that this proposed use is more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use. That falls under that section, and then when you look at under your authority section, item D under the board's power says the board shall determine the appropriateness of proposed changes to non-conforming uses or structures. So those are your...
So the first one was 1740, 650...
C4.
C4, okay.
I'm not really sure why the writers of our code there in the back chose to separate it like they did. It really should be over under your authority sections. If you've got the latest version of the code down at the very bottom, it's 17.40:26, page 26 of that section. And it's C4.
Okay, applicant, you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Marvin Carter. I'm trying to put the restaurant in the area that he pertained to. I didn't know at first that I had any people opposing my situation, because, and then I got an email that Miss Linda sent to me letting me know the situation. The email was really pertaining to the residential area and the people who's living in that area and the traffic on the street. As you can see, the area that I'm trying to move into is not really close to the homes on that street. It's a little strip mall, and the people who's been in the strip mall I've been going to the place on the end, which is a barbershop, for 14 years. And the traffic, if I bring any traffic, it is not going to be nowhere near what the traffic is, in the parking space. Because there's a limited amount of parking spaces in that little area right there, unless you go all the way to the back. But I understand, people have been living there for 25, 30 years, and, I'm sure this is the first time they haven't really had a chance to voice their opinion on maybe, the parking in that area right there, because I'm sure all the other people that's in that building are residential people. And with me trying to transfer a spot over and turn it into a commercial, it's giving a couple of people a chance to say what they wanted to say. My place is going to be a small place. It's going to be a family-oriented place. It's going to be, a neighborhood-friendly place. I mean, it's going to be carry-out only, no dining in. Come in, pick up your make your order, a few minutes for your food, 10, 15 minutes top. My hours of opening will be from 11 to 8 o'clock through the week, and maybe 10 for weekends, Friday and Saturday. So, that's about the same amount of time that most of the business is a beauty shop and a barbershop right there, and a small church, which I haven't seen to be open through the week, normally on Sundays. And I'm closed on Sundays. So they have all the parking to themselves pretty much on Sundays. So, my spot won't bring no more traffic than Wendy's across the street does, and that's basically all I really have to say about it.
I'm sorry. There's
yes,
a Wendy's across the street?
It's a Wendy's right across the street.
24 hours.
24 hours, Wendy's across the street. And, if you ever been down Murfreesboro Road is one of the busiest intersections in Nashville. And Rural Hill, true enough, gets a lot of traffic because it's like a cut through. If you're going to go through Priest Lake or Smith Springs or get to Bell Road, it's a cut through. That's what makes it mainly what everybody uses it for. So, I don't see me bringing no more traffic to that neighborhood than, anything else. My little spot is not going, I might add 10 cars at the most.
Were you familiar with the space, what the space was used for before?
Yes, it was international market. It was an international market. And
like food?
Yeah, they sold food. They didn't sell food. They sold items, for international cooking or whatever.
Right. Like a small grocery store.
Like a small grocery store. And what made me like the property so much, they left a walk-in cooler in the back of it. If you hadn't been in the restaurant business, that's a $5,000, $6,000 expense that you don't have to pay for. And the bathrooms was in perfect conditions. They left a 3-compartment sink in there. So, it was almost ready for me. All I had to do is put my cooking utensils and cooking supplies, what I was going to put in there. So it was a great deal. And that's what really interested me in the spot. So, that's all I really have to say about it.
My name is Dawn Thrasher. I live at 309 Rural Hill Road, which is approximately 5 or 6 houses down from where he wants to put the barbecue restaurant in. I'm pretty familiar with most of my neighbors because I've lived in this area for 8 years now. I'm a very social person. I like to get to know my neighbors. I wasn't aware of any opposition about the barbecue place until Ms. Johnston came to me and brought it to my attention. I think that she's done a very good job trying to make the whole community out there aware of the barbecue place. She's held a meeting that I attended last night. Only one other family came out in addition to myself. I got to see the restaurant, the menu. Very familiar with the traffic on that road. The increase of traffic over the years is simply, as he stated, we are right in the middle of Murfreesboro Road and Bell Road, and it's a cut-through. I don't see his restaurant adding additional traffic, and it's not an issue to me.
Thank you, Chair Witz and Vice Chair King, esteemed board members. I know you all have been really patient today. These have been quite a few long cases here that you are hearing, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come before you today in regards to the proposed barbecue takeout. I'm Council Lady Karen Johnson, District 29, address 2928 Moss Spring Drive. I come in support basically because the adjoining business owners in the office complex, as well as the majority of the neighbors around that vicinity, have all expressed support for this project. What I feel it is compatible in this spot, because if you can put up, Joey, the last slide where you showed all of the buildings in view. And I just wanted to point out the reason why I feel this is compatible. I think it was, keep going, that one. Okay, he is actually on the end right there, and immediately across the street is a Wendy's, which is 24 hours. Behind him, in not the complex, towards Murfreesboro Road, the next one, right there. There's actually a mobile cooking unit there as part of that quick sack. So it's not even very far away from where he would have the takeout. Immediately across the street on Murfreesboro Pike is another fish and barbecue place right on the corner. So within that vicinity, you have eating establishments. There's a little small neighborhood, I think it's a bar in that.
Yeah, Larry's.
Larry's sports bar, that's there as well. So I don't see any adverse impact that a small takeout restaurant business would have in an already functional area that has those types of uses. So I would like to respectfully ask that you approve this exception to allow this business to come into this space. We welcome having these empty spots within these strip centers filled with quality businesses. And so I ask for your support today. And you did get my email, I hope, that showed the 406 addresses that I mailed postcards to. I also personally placed flyers a few days before on everyone's door that led up to this particular strip center. And am I missing anything? And of course, you have a copy of the sign-in sheet and the agenda that was distributed.
Well, and thank you for all your efforts, because that makes our job a heck of a lot easier when we have a good, accurate analysis of how the neighborhood feels. Do we have any questions for?
Why are you hanging all these yourself, aren't you?
You know, I was so perplexed because I had not received any communication of any opposition. And so when that happens, you know, everybody knows me as someone who over communicates. And so I felt, you know, a responsibility as the representative to make sure that I touched each and every door. And I actually was able to talk to many of the neighbors as I went door to door and found out that there was a songwriter that lived over there, and just different people that I just really didn't know that were in that area. So it gave me an opportunity to really get a good sense of, you know, if there was a lot of opposition or support. And overwhelmingly, every single person I talked to said they supported. And I even went to the sister's house of the lady who came the last hearing, and after I explained to her what exactly this was, because she had thought that it was going to be a drive-in type deal, and once I explained to her where it was and that it was just a takeout type deal, she had no problem with that.
Okay, any other questions? Then I'm going to move to close the public hearing and open up discussion.
I think it sounds like an easy decision for me.
I see a good fit myself.
Yeah, it clearly is, I would say, meets the definition of one non-conforming going to another.
Okay, then I am going to make a motion that the board approve the proposed change to this non-conforming use of a portion of a building because the board finds the new non-conforming use will be more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellas. I appreciate it.
And good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
All right, we'll call the final case today, case 2012-97. The applicants have come forward. Mr. Chairman, the record will reflect the room is devoid of opposition. The Climb Nashville is the appellant. Bruce Yazdian is the owner of the property at 3610 Charlotte Pike. This covers parcels 217 through 221 on map 92.9. They are requesting to build a new 85 by 120 fitness center for Climb Nashville. This is a special exception for street setbacks along the Charlotte, and the agenda says 37th. It's actually 36th Avenue. This will be on the east side of the site. The subject property is shown on the north side of Charlotte and in between 37th and 36th Avenues North. You see here in the CS zoning district. These are the areas of the subject properties. Surrounding property land uses include used car lots both to the east and west and to the south of the subject property. Duplexes north of the site, and an alley separating it from the residential. The applicant originally submitted a site plan showing the structure located on the western property line. The planning department, you have in your record a staff report that discusses that in some detail, recommending the building be pushed back 11 feet from Charlotte and 5 from 37th. The applicant has before you, I believe, a board that he'll be presenting. They decided in taking that staff report and flipped the plan. They have now putting the building at the eastern side of the lot, putting the building at the 11-foot setback requested by planning and the 5-foot setback. I had spoken with Tiffany Capehart, who's the young lady who does the staff reports for the planning department, and wanted to get on record her comments. I put those before you visually, and we'll include a copy. I'll read it per the BZA attorney. We discussed with her, we did not want the board to act on this revised plan without something from the planning department saying that they had reviewed this plan and were either okay or hated it or whatnot. And she's attached the revised plan, but it says, here's an email that will serve as testimony regarding the revised site plans for this case submitted to the BZA on October 4th. This planning staff has reviewed the revised plan and the moves the building from the corner of 37th and Charlotte to the corner of 36th and Charlotte. The applicant is providing the same setbacks that were requested on the previously submitted plans, an 11-foot setback on Charlotte, 5 feet now on 36, both from the property line. The planning staff see no issue with the revised site plan on that. The photographs of the subject property that are here, this is a view from Charlotte looking up north into the site. I've tried to piece these two photographs here to give you some idea of the entire site that runs the whole block face here. And then these are views of the surrounding land uses adjoining the subject site. The intersection at the bottom left is the intersection of 36th in Charlotte. This upper right photograph, this is 36 here in Charlotte. So as I said, in the original plan, the building was kind of over in this corner. NES had some transmission lines in this area that also really necessitated the building to be flipped on this end and put it down here. And then a view from the alleyway looking east, again toward 36th Avenue, running in the background, a view down toward Charlotte, and this looks across the site toward the intersection of 36th and Charlotte. This area here would be parking the building down in that corner. Again, I'll leave this photograph up and turn it over to the applicant at this time.
So to be clear, or further muddy the waters, we're being asked to decide the 36th Avenue setback and the Charlotte?
Yes.
And what should they be?
The setbacks required under the major collector street plan. Yeah, thank you, because I didn't cover that. The required setbacks are to be 26 from the lot line on Charlotte. They are proposing 11, and required to be 20 feet from 36th Avenue and requesting 5. Those are the amended count numbers on that. For point of clarification, the original plan was requesting to be 0 from both that intersection. So the plan is more compliant, but needs the board's approval for special exception and setback. Again, this is in the UZO, and setbacks for non-residence buildings can petition the board not by a variance standard, but by a special exception standard, that the proposed setbacks would not adversely affect adjoining properties nor detract from a strong pedestrian-friendly streetscape. That is your standard in the setback. So, okay, with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant at this time. Again, last call, any opposition present or any parties who would like to address the board in support may also come up if you like. Okay.
Ryan Lovelace, Civil Site Design Group. We are the engineers on the project, Climb Nashville. We're in agreement with all of staff's recommendations on the setbacks. We initially, of course, wanted to use the UZO setbacks, which allows you to push it up to the road on both directions. But after talking to staff and getting a report, they've asked us to move it off for future expansion of Charlotte and future expansion of the I guess 36th Avenue. So we're okay with that. That's the plan I just handed out to you guys to see. The plan still works. So we're okay with all of staff's recommendations. The only point of clarification I'd like to state is I noticed in today's agenda that it does say 85 by 120. It's actually a 90 by 120, and that's the plan that y'all have. So the 91 by 120 works. So if we could just make that point of clarification, it is a 90 by 120 building. But otherwise, we are in agreement with staff's recommendations on the setbacks and request your approval.
We don't have any opposition on record. And oh, go ahead.
I was going to put this on consent, but what ended up happening is they swapped the building to the other side, so we couldn't have it on consent because we'd had nothing. Otherwise, I would have put this on consent. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm going to move to close the public hearing and have any discussion. Oh, it's taking the place of a vacant land, and it's in between a couple of car dealerships, and they're doing a nice job of it, and they're agreeing with the planning department. So I would move approval because it meets all the requirements of the special exception and that it's been met. And so I would move approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, the Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned. Thank you. Our next meeting, October the 18th. I believe just 3 cases on that agenda. So.